Okay, so we are getting ready to graft the sleeve. At this point, we've already picked up our stitches from the provisional cast-on edge, and we have our working yarn still attached to where we finished. When you picked up those provisional cast-on stitches at the very end, you would have gone through something that looked like this. It appears to be one stitch near the back, but it's actually a set here. So just make sure you have that pair right at the very end. And then the first thing we're going to do is working on the back needle. I'm actually going to remove this first stitch. Take that out, bring the yarn to the front, and put that stitch back on the needle. Just make sure that it is flowing in the correct direction. Okay, now you're ready to go. And so the setup for this, to get this section of slip stitches to match, is to go into this back stitch as if to knit. So you're going to take and slide your needle through here as if to knit, leaving that stitch on the needle. Then come to the front. You're going to purl off the first set of this stitch. So purl off this stitch. You're going to want to snug that up a little bit, not too tight. And then you're going to purl on the next part of that set. So you've got two purls happening there. Then we're going to go to the back. We're going to purl off the back, and that completes the edge. Let's see if we can take a look at that. You can tell it's a little tricky to see, but all the stitches are going in the same direction. We're now going to purl on the first stitch of the back. And then you're going to come to the front and follow the grafting technique as written in the pattern for garter. So you're going to knit off, purl on the front, knit off, and purl on the back. So let's start knitting off and purling on. Knitting off and purling on. Knitting off, purling on. Knitting off, purling on. You're going to continue doing this for the entire rest of that garter section till you get to the slip stitch. Knitting off, purling on. Knitting off and purling on. You can see now the pattern is starting to show up. Knitting off, purling on. Knitting off, purling on. Knit off, purl on. Knit off, purl on. Now we're getting close. Knit off, purl on. knit off, purl on, knit off, purl on. As you can see right now, we are now into the section where our slip stitch is. We're not going to do anything yet on the front. You'll see what happens. So now we move to the back, where we're going to knit off. And let me pull this through. We just knit off, but I want you to see this a little closer. So we just knit off a stitch, and now we are into that slip stitch area. And because we're in that stitch, instead of purling on, we are going to knit on. And this is the transition. So we just knit off and knit on. Now when you come to the front, you're going to just continue the knit off, purl on, and watch what happens as I slip the stitch off to knit and purl. It's just going to continue to flow. Okay, so knit off and purl on the front. Okay, now we're coming back to the back. We're going to work in the stockinette repeat, which is to purl off, knit on, and on the back, and then knitting off and purling on the front. Okay, so we're going to purl off, knit on, purl off, knit on, and then we come to the front where we're going to knit off, purl on. So basically the front never changes. It's always the knit off, purl on. It's the back that switches. So in the back we are now purling off and knitting on. Knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on, knit, purl, purl, knit, knit, purl. And you should be able to see that that's already lining up pretty nicely. And just continue. We just purled. And if you can see on the front, I can see that I purled was the last thing I did. So we're going to jump to the back and go purl off, knit on. And you're just going to keep with this rhythm right till the end of where you're supposed to graft to. Knit, purl, purl, knit, 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 knit. Purl's fine. Okay. So we have our finished baby sleeve. And I would give that a tug and get all those stitches to kind of line up real nice and steam that, and you should be good. So you have a beautiful slip stitch matching up, you have your garter stitches matching up, and then you have your edge detail. Thanks for watching.